Story. Chapter 1. Perfect Illusions. Derek Ward's fingers tightened around his crystal tumbler as he watched Miranda laugh at another of Lucas Wolf's supposedly brilliant observations about Renaissance art. The sound grated against his nerves, too bright, too eager, nothing like the controlled chuckle she usually reserved for their social gatherings. The brushwork technique is unmistakable, Lucas declared, gesturing with his wine glass. Most collectors wouldn't catch it, but that's why authentication requires such intimate attention to detail. Henry Ward, seated at the head of the mahogany dining table, nodded appreciatively. Fascinating, Lucas. The museum is fortunate to have someone with your expertise. Derek took another sip of his scotch, letting the amber liquid burn away the acid taste in his mouth. At 43, he had mastered the art of the pleasant facade, a skill that served him well both as a financial advisor at Preston & Associates and as the supposed patriarch of this Sunday dinner charade. Miranda mentioned you authenticated 3 new pieces this month, Derek said, his voice carrying just enough interest to maintain his role as the engaged host. Quite productive. Lucas's eyes flickered to Miranda for a fraction of a second before he smiled. Your wife's curatorial instincts are remarkable. She has an eye for potential that makes my job significantly easier. Among other talents, Henry added, raising his glass in Miranda's direction. The gesture seemed innocent enough, but something in his father's tone made Derek's skin prickle. Miranda touched Lucas's arm as she stood. Let me show you the Caravaggio prints I was telling you about. They're in the study. The study's being renovated, Derek reminded her, watching their body language with growing unease. Oh, right. Miranda recovered smoothly. My office, then. They'll need your opinion before we consider them for the Renaissance exhibition. As they left the dining room, Roxanne Lang's warnings about the financial discrepancies echoed in Derek's mind. His assistant had approached him 3 times in the past month, each time more insistent about the irregular patterns in his personal accounts. More scotch, son? Henry's voice cut through his thoughts. Derek studied his father's face, searching for something. 10 years had passed since his mother's death, but the questions surrounding her accident still nagged at him. The rushed cremation, against her explicit wishes for burial beside her parents, had sparked the first real argument between father and son. I should check on the kids' school accounts, Derek said, standing. The tuition payments are due soon. Henry's hand tightened almost imperceptibly around his wine glass. Miranda handles all that, doesn't she? Through the trust? Time I took a more active role in the finances, Derek replied, maintaining eye contact until his father looked away. In his home office, Derek pulled up the latest bank statements. The numbers confirmed Roxanne's concerns, large transfers disguised as art acquisitions and educational expenses, but the timing didn't align with either the museum's purchasing schedule or the children's school terms. A soft laugh drifted through the window, drawing his attention to the garden below. Miranda and Lucas stood too close together, their profiles illuminated by the patio lights. As Derek watched, Lucas brushed a strand of hair from Miranda's face, an intimately familiar gesture that sent ice through Derek's veins. The next morning, Derek arrived at his office earlier than usual. Roxanne was already at her desk, her efficiency one of the reasons he'd kept her as his assistant for over a decade. Mr. Ward, she straightened in her chair. I've compiled those account summaries you requested. Show me everything, he ordered, closing his office door. From the beginning. Roxanne spread the documents across his desk. The pattern started roughly 15 years ago. Small transfers at first, then larger ones coinciding with your children's births. She hesitated. There's something else. The trust fund your father established. It has unusual terms. Derek scanned the trust documents, his jaw tightening. Control transfers to an unnamed third party when the children turn 18. Your signature appears on the authorization, Roxanne pointed out carefully. But the handwriting isn't mine. Derek's voice was deadly quiet. Pull my mother's death certificate and find out everything you can about Lucas Wolf's movements in and out of Boston over the past 15 years. Sir, Roxanne cleared her throat. You should know. I tried to trace his employment history at the Chicago Institute of Art. The records are inconsistent. It's as if someone created a paper trail after the fact. Derek's phone buzzed, a text from Miranda. Contractor found water damage behind the study walls. Needs to open them up. Okay to proceed? He typed back. Do what's necessary. The renovation had been Miranda's idea, pushed through despite his objections about the timing. Now, watching the pieces fall into place, Derek felt a cold clarity descend. Roxanne, he said, his tone making her look up sharply. Get me everything on Timothy Bautista's legal work for the family. And find out who handled my mother's cremation arrangements. Mr. Ward, Roxanne hesitated. There's a nurse, Renee Lamb. She assisted with all 5 of your children's births. She left the hospital abruptly after trying to raise concerns about some discrepancies in the medical records. Find her, Derek commanded, whatever it costs. That evening, Derek entered his study, noting the plastic sheeting and exposed walls with new interest. Miranda was at another late exhibition planning meeting, and Henry had taken the contractor's call personally, insisting on overseeing the renovation details himself. Moving along the walls, Derek found it behind a section of partially removed paneling, a hidden compartment, recently disturbed judging by the dust patterns. Inside, wrapped in acid-free paper, lay a leather-bound diary and a stack of photographs. The first photo stopped his breath. Miranda and Lucas at a carnival, dated 2 years before Lucas's supposed arrival in Boston. Behind it, medical records and birth certificates told a story that turned his world to ash. The diary entry was in Miranda's handwriting. My love, all 5 kids are yours. The dummy even paid for their expensive boarding schools. Henry's been incredible, keeping our secret all these years. He loves the children as his own grandchildren, more than he ever loved Derek as a son. Sometimes I feel guilty, but then I remember how alive you make me feel, how dead I was in my marriage before you came along. Derek's hand curled into a fist, crumpling the page. The sound of a car in the driveway pulled him back to the present. He carefully replaced everything except 1 photo and 1 page of medical records, then stepped back into the shadows of his study. Miranda's heels clicked on the marble foyer. Derek? You home? In the study, he called out, his voice perfectly controlled. She appeared in the doorway, cheeks flushed from more than just the autumn air. The contractor said, Sit down, Miranda. His tone made her freeze. Tell me about the carnival in Newport. The one from 2 years before Lucas transferred from Chicago. The color drained from her face. What are you? 15 years, Derek cut her off. 5 children. All those convenient art authentication conferences. He placed the photo on his desk. Did you and my father laugh about it? The perfect plan to cuckold the trusting husband while stealing his fortune? Derek, please. Miranda started to rise. Sit down. His voice could have frozen hell itself. You're going to tell me everything. About the trust fund. About my mother's death. About Henry's role in all of it. And then he smiled, an expression that made her shrink back into her chair. You're going to watch while I tear your perfectly constructed world apart. The silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of 15 years of lies. Finally, Miranda spoke, her voice barely a whisper. What are you going to do? Derek leaned forward, his eyes boring into hers. I'm going to destroy you, Miranda. You, Lucas, my father, everyone who thought they could play me for a fool. But first, I'm going to make you confess. Every detail, every lie, every single betrayal. And as the night deepened around them, Miranda began to talk, unraveling the elaborate deception that had defined Derek Ward's life for the past 15 years. Chapter 2. The Discovery. The renovation crew arrived early the next morning, their tools creating a percussive backdrop to Derek's investigation. He had spent the night in his private office at Preston & Associates, analyzing years of financial records with Roxanne's help. Mr. Ward, Roxanne entered with a fresh stack of documents. I found Renee Lamb. Derek looked up from his computer. Where? Working at a private clinic in Providence. She agreed to meet, but only off the record. Roxanne placed a detailed background report on his desk. She's afraid of your father's influence. Book it for today. Use cash. No paper trail. Derek turned back to his screen. What about Timothy? Your brother-in-law's billing records show regular payments from a shell company traced back to Lucas Wolf. The payments began 3 months before your mother's death. Derek's hands stilled over the keyboard. Show me. The evidence was damning. Timothy Bautista, Miranda's younger brother and the family's legal advisor, had been on Lucas's payroll for years. The payments coincided with major life events: his mother's death, each child's birth, the trust fund's creation. 2 hours later, Derek sat across from Renee Lamb in a quiet coffee shop in Providence. The former nurse clutched her cup with trembling hands. I tried to tell them, she said, her voice barely audible. The blood types, they were impossible given your medical profile. But Dr. Harrison said Henry Ward had personally vouched for the record's accuracy. Tell me about the births, Derek commanded softly. Your father was present for each one. He would arrive before the delivery, spend time alone with the records. Renee swallowed hard. There was a man who visited afterward, when Miranda thought you had gone home. He looked like the children. Lucas Wolfe. Renee nodded. The last time, with the twins, I threatened to report the discrepancies. The next day, Henry Ward was in my supervisor's office. I was transferred to the maintenance department, then laid off 3 months later. You kept records? Everything. She reached into her bag, withdrawing a thick envelope. I knew someday someone would need to know the truth. Back at his office, Derek spread out Renee's documents alongside the items from the hidden compartment. The story they told made his blood boil. A conspiracy spanning decades, orchestrated by his own father. A knock interrupted his analysis. Come in. Detective James Moran entered, looking uncomfortable. Derek, what's this about Marion's death? Sit down, James. Tell me why you convinced Cheryl to keep quiet about seeing Miranda with Lucas in New York. The detective's face paled. How did you? I have the hotel receipts. The same week you received a substantial deposit from a numbered account. Henry's account. Derek, you don't understand. Then explain it to me. Derek's voice was lethal silk. Explain why my best friend helped cover up my wife's affair. Explain why a decorated detective ignored evidence about my mother's suspicious death. James slumped in his chair. Henry said it would destroy you, learning about Miranda and Lucas. He said Marion's death was an accident. She was distraught, unstable. The evidence was circumstantial. Show me the case file. It was sealed. Henry used his influence. Unseal it. Derek's tone left no room for argument. Or I release everything I have on the payoffs. That evening, Derek visited the family mausoleum where his mother should have been laid to rest. The grandiose structure stood as a monument to the Ward family legacy, a legacy built on lies. His phone buzzed, a message from Miranda. Where are you? We need to talk about the children. Derek's reply was concise. Nothing to discuss. They're not mine. Her response came quickly. They love you. You're the only father they've known. Like Henry was the only father I knew? He typed back. How convenient that he helped hide his grandchildren's true parentage. His phone rang. Henry. Derek let it go to voicemail, instead dialing Roxanne. Sir? Execute the transfers we discussed. And contact Christina Andrews and Kathleen Gordon. Tell them I'm interested in their gallery chain. Their financial situation is precarious, Roxanne warned. Perfect. Derek smiled grimly. Have my jet ready tomorrow. It's time to become Isaac McGuire. A final text arrived from Miranda. Please, let me explain. For the children's sake. Derek read it twice, remembering the diary entries detailing how she and Lucas had planned each pregnancy around his business trips. How they had laughed at his pride in children who shared none of his DNA. How Henry had orchestrated it all, perhaps as revenge for loving Marion more than he loved his own son. His response was simple. You should have thought about the children before you and Lucas decided to make me raise them as my own. Give my regards to my father. I'm sure he'll be relieved to finally acknowledge his real grandchildren. Chapter 3. The Unraveling. The safe deposit box yielded one final devastating piece of evidence. Marion Ward's personal diary. Derek sat in the bank's private viewing room, his mother's last words burning into his consciousness. Henry knows about Miranda and Lucas. I confronted him today. The look in his eyes terrified me. He said I didn't understand, that some things are better left buried. But how can I stay silent? Derek deserves to know the truth about his wife, about the children. The entry was dated 3 days before her fatal fall. Derek's phone vibrated. A text from Detective Moran. Emmy's original report found signs of struggle inconsistent with accident. Henry's signature on cremation order dated before time of death. Another message followed. Security footage from hospital missing. Henry on hospital board when archives were digitized. Keep digging, Derek replied. I want everything. At Preston and Associates, Roxanne had compiled a timeline of Lucas's authenticated artworks. The pattern was clear. Pieces authenticated during his conferences in Boston consistently sold for far above market value. The Chicago Institute has no record of him in their authentication department, Roxanne reported. But I found this. She handed him a newspaper clipping. Lucas Wolfe named in an authentication scandal. Charges mysteriously dropped after key evidence disappeared. Contact Candace Marks, Derek instructed. Former FBI Art Crimes Division. Tell her I have information about the Chicago case. Already done. She's willing to meet. Roxanne hesitated. There's more. I traced the trust fund transfers. Henry's been siphoning money from your mother's inheritance to fund it. Derek's expression hardened. How much? Millions. The fund is structured to transfer to Lucas's control when the children turn 18. A knock interrupted them. Timothy Bautista stood in the doorway, his usual polished demeanor cracking around the edges. We need to talk, Miranda's brother said. About what? Derek's voice was arctic. The payments from Lucas? Or my mother's convenient cremation? Timothy blanched. You don't understand. Then enlighten me. Derek gestured to a chair. Explain why my wife's brother helped hide her affair and my mother's murder. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Timothy sank into the chair. Henry approached me about handling some private legal matters. Said it was to protect the family reputation. By falsifying birth records? Creating a trust fund to steal my children's inheritance. The trust was Henry's idea. He said it was insurance, in case you ever discovered. Timothy trailed off. In case I discovered my entire life was a lie? Derek leaned forward. Tell me about my mother's death. She found Miranda's letters to Lucas. Threatened to expose everything. Timothy wouldn't meet his eyes. Henry said he'd handle it. I didn't know. I never thought. You never thought what? Derek's voice cut like a blade. That helping cover up my mother's death might have consequences? Timothy's face crumpled. She wasn't supposed to die. Henry said he'd convince her to keep quiet. When I heard about the fall, He buried his face in his hands. I helped with the cremation paperwork. Henry said it was necessary to protect everyone. Protect everyone? Derek stood, looming over his brother-in-law. Or protect your sister's perfect life with her lover? Miranda was young when she met Lucas. Timothy defended weakly. They had a connection. Spare me the romance novel, Derek snapped. You helped them deceive me for 15 years. Used your legal expertise to create false documents, hide financial transactions, and cover up a death. Roxanne entered with a fresh stack of papers. Sir, the analysis of Henry's investment records is complete. You'll want to see this. The documents revealed another layer of betrayal. Henry had been using Derek's financial expertise to help Lucas build his art authentication business, funneling profits through offshore accounts. Get out, Derek ordered Timothy, but don't leave town. When this breaks, you'll want that immunity deal you're going to negotiate with the DA. After Timothy fled, Derek turned to Roxanne. What did you find on Joe and York? Former senior conservator at the museum, Roxanne consulted her notes. She opposed Lucas's hiring, cited concerns about his authentication methods. Was transferred to the West Coast Division shortly after. Transfer documents? Signed by the board after Henry made a substantial donation to the museum's endowment fund. Derek's phone lit up with another text from Miranda. The children are asking about you. Please come home. Home. The word tasted like ashes. The Victorian mansion he'd bought for their family was just another prop in their elaborate deception. He thought of the children at their boarding schools, none of them sharing his brown eyes or his mother's auburn hair. Miranda's explanations about family genetics now revealed as carefully crafted lies. Sir? Roxanne's voice pulled him back. Detective Moran sent the complete autopsy photos. And I have Cheryl Moran on line 1. Derek picked up the phone. Cheryl, I should have told you. His best friend's wife burst out. When I saw them at the hotel, James said exposing it would destroy too many lives. That Henry had proof of Miranda's affair, but was handling it privately to protect the family name. When was this? 3 years ago. The weekend of the museum's donor gala. Cheryl's voice cracked. Miranda was wearing the sapphire necklace you'd given her for your anniversary. Another piece clicked into place. The necklace she'd claimed to have lost months later. The insurance payout that had mysteriously never been processed. Thank you, Cheryl, Derek said quietly. You've been more honest than my own family. He hung up and turned to Roxanne. Prepare the documents we discussed. All of them. And contact Christina Andrews and Kathleen Gordon about their gallery chain. Already done. They're eager to meet with Isaac McGuire about a potential investment. Roxanne paused. Are you sure about this? Derek stood at his office window, watching the city below. Somewhere out there, his wife and her lover were probably celebrating another successful deception. His father was likely orchestrating more ways to control the fortune that should have been his children's inheritance. Children who had never been his. My mother wrote that some things are better left buried, he said finally. She was wrong. It's time to dig up everything they tried to hide. Every lie, every betrayal, every criminal act they committed while playing their roles in this farce of a family. It will destroy them, Roxanne observed. Yes, Derek agreed, his voice hard with resolve. It will. Chapter 4. The Plan. Roxanne Lang stared at the passport in her hands. The name Isaac McGuire stared back, accompanied by a photo of Derek Ward with subtle alterations. Graying temples, different hairstyle, rimless glasses. The documentation is perfect, she said, examining the associated papers. But what about digital footprints? Already handled, Derek replied, reviewing files on his laptop. Isaac McGuire has a master's in finance from Edinburgh, 10 years of private banking experience in London, and a particular interest in art market investments. They sat in a private office suite in Manhattan, far from Boston's prying eyes. The space, rented under a shell corporation, had become their war room. The trust fund transfer records are concerning, Roxanne noted, gesturing to her screen. Henry's been moving larger amounts recently. He's getting nervous. Derek's voice held cold satisfaction. The Christmas dinner plan will push him over the edge. The DNA test results lay on the desk between them, accompanied by detailed medical records and birth certificates. Next to them sat a thick folder containing evidence of Henry's involvement in Marion Ward's death. Detective Moran called again, Roxanne reported. He's wavering. Send him the first package, Derek commanded. Let him see what his silence has protected all these years. A knock interrupted them. Candace Marks entered, her FBI training evident in her precise movements. Your father's been making inquiries about offshore accounts. He's trying to trace the money. Good. Derek smiled without warmth. Let him chase shadows while we dismantle his empire. Candace spread photographs across the desk, surveillance shots of Lucas at various galleries, meeting with known art fraud suspects. He's getting sloppy. The Chicago scandal wasn't his first brush with fraud accusations. Tell me about the Andrews Gordon sisters, Derek requested. Christina and Kathleen inherited the gallery chain from their father, Robert Gordon. Lucas authenticated a Rembrandt for him. Turned out to be fake. The scandal bankrupted Gordon. He died of a heart attack 3 months later. And now their galleries are struggling? On paper, Candace confirmed. But I've traced a pattern of legitimate authentications through smaller, independent experts. They're building a clean portfolio behind the scenes. Derek nodded appreciatively. Smart women. Set up a meeting. Already done. They're eager to meet the mysterious Isaac McGuire. Candace paused. There's more. Lucas has been approaching other galleries, looking for authentication contracts. He's burning through cash faster than usual. Miranda's getting greedy, Roxanne observed. The museum's salary can't support their lifestyle anymore. No, Derek agreed. But desperation makes people careless. What about the children? All 5 remain at their boarding schools, Roxanne reported. Miranda's been making weekly deposits to their accounts, money traced back to recent art sales. Sales authenticated by Lucas, Candace added. The prices are inflated by at least 40%. Derek's phone buzzed. A text from Henry. Son, we need to talk. About your mother's estate. He's panicking, Derek noted with satisfaction. Roxanne, proceed with the asset liquidation. Candace, get me everything on Lucas's Chicago operations. It's time to turn up the heat. The next morning, Isaac McGuire made his first official appearance, touring the Andrews Gordon Flagship Gallery in Manhattan. The authentication process is our primary concern, Christina Andrews explained, leading him through the exhibition space. Recent market volatility has made buyers cautious. Understandable, Isaac replied, examining a Renaissance piece. Especially after the Gordon Wolf scandal. Kathleen Gordon's head snapped up. You know about that? I make it my business to know market history. Isaac adjusted his glasses. Your father's reputation for integrity was well known in European circles. The sisters exchanged glances. Perhaps we should continue this discussion in private, Christina suggested. In their office, Kathleen poured 3 glasses of scotch. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. McGuire? A partnership, Isaac replied smoothly. Your galleries have an impeccable provenance verification system. Combined with proper capitalization, he let the implication hang. We've had other offers, Christina noted. From Lucas Wolf, perhaps? Isaac watched their reactions. Through intermediaries, of course. How did you Kathleen started? The same way I know about the independent authentications you've been quietly accumulating. Isaac sipped his scotch. Smart move, building a clean portfolio. Christina leaned forward. What's your real interest here, Mr. McGuire? Let's say I have a personal stake in seeing certain fraudulent practices exposed. He placed a file on their desk. This might interest you. The sisters reviewed the documents, evidence linking Lucas to multiple authentication scandals, including their father's case. Why show us this? Kathleen demanded. Because you understand the value of patience, of building a case so strong it can't be buried by connections or money. Isaac stood. Consider my offer. I'll be in touch. Back in his temporary office, Derek reviewed the day's developments with his team. The sisters are intrigued, Candace reported. They've already started background checks on Isaac McGuire. They won't find anything concerning, Roxanne assured them. The identity is ironclad. What about the Christmas dinner preparations? Derek asked. All arranged, Candace confirmed. The DNA results will arrive during dessert. Detective Moran is prepared to act on the evidence about Marion's death. Derek's phone lit up with another message, from Miranda this time. The children ask about you. Please come home. He deleted it without responding. On his desk, Marion's diary lay open to her final entry. Henry says some things are better left buried. But the truth has a way of surfacing, doesn't it? Like bodies in a river. Sir, Roxanne interrupted his thoughts. Henry's trying to access the trust fund. He's encountered our blocks. Right on schedule, Derek murmured. Proceed with Phase 2. Chapter 5. The Players. Lucas Wolf paced his office at the Museum of Fine Arts, phone pressed to his ear. The authentication has to hold up, Timothy. The buyers are asking questions. The paperwork is solid, Miranda's brother assured him. But Henry's behavior is concerning. He's been drinking, talking about Marion. Handle it, Lucas snapped. That's what we pay you for. The office door opened and Miranda entered, her face tight with worry. Lucas, we need to talk. He ended the call. What's wrong? Henry's new wife, Miranda spat. That gold-digging snake has been recording his drunken ramblings. About Marion, about us, about the children. Patrice? Lucas frowned. How do you know? Timothy overheard her on the phone with her lawyer. She's building insurance in case Henry tries to cut her out of his will. Lucas swore softly. First Derek disappears, now this. The timing. He knows something, Miranda whispered. He has to. The way he vanished. Right after the renovation started. The hidden compartment was empty, Lucas reminded her. We checked. Then why hasn't he touched his accounts? Why won't he answer calls from the children? Before Lucas could respond, his phone buzzed. An email from the Chicago Institute of Art. inquiring about authentication records from his supposed tenure there. Problems? Miranda asked, noting his expression. Nothing serious, he lied smoothly. How are the children handling everything? Claire's asking questions. About the authentication processes, about your background. Miranda sank into a chair. She's too smart for her own good. Like her father, Lucas muttered. Don't. Miranda's voice cracked. Don't talk about him. At his care facility, Henry Ward stared at his bank statements in disbelief. The transfers were denied? How is that possible? Patrice Mahoney Ward placed a calming hand on his shoulder while activating the recording app on her phone. Tell me again about Marion, darling. About the night she fell. She didn't fall, Henry slurred, reaching for his whiskey. She knew too much. About Miranda and Lucas, about the children. She was going to tell Derek everything. Patrice's fingers tightened on her phone. What happened that night? I tried to reason with her. Told her some things are better left buried. But Marion, she was always so righteous. Like Derek. Henry's voice broke. My son. What have I done to my son? In her dorm room at boarding school, Claire Wolfe, née Ward, researched authentication methodologies on her laptop. Her mother's latest email sat unanswered in her inbox. Please call. We're worried about you. A notification popped up. Another anonymous tip about Lucas's authentication practices had been uploaded to the Art Fraud Investigation database. Claire smiled grimly as she added her own documentation to the growing file. Her phone buzzed, a text from her siblings' group chat. The twins, Thomas and Elizabeth, were planning to study abroad next semester. Can't stay here, Elizabeth wrote. Too many lies. At the police station, Detective James Moran reviewed the latest evidence package that had arrived anonymously. Photos of Marion Ward's original autopsy, witness statements that had been suppressed, Henry's signatures on cremation orders dated before her death. His wife Cheryl entered his office. James, you have to do something. This isn't going away. I know. He stared at the files. I should have listened to you years ago, about Miranda and Lucas. It's not too late to do the right thing, she urged. A knock interrupted them. Jillian Cobb, the museum's new director, stood in the doorway. Detective Moran? We need to talk about some irregularities in our authentication records. Meanwhile, Timothy Bautista sat in his law office, surrounded by incriminating documents. Years of falsified records, backdated contracts, suspicious death certificates. He kept copies of everything, insurance against the day it all unraveled. His phone rang. Lucas again. The Chicago Inquiry, Lucas demanded without preamble. Handle it. It's not that simple anymore, Timothy replied. Things are unraveling, Lucas. Henry's drinking, talking too much. Patrice is recording everything. Then discredit her, Lucas snapped. That's your job. No, Timothy said quietly. Not anymore. I'm done cleaning up your messes. He ended the call and opened his safe, removing a thick file labeled insurance. Inside lay years of evidence against Lucas and Miranda, carefully preserved for this moment. His phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Ready to make things right? Reply if interested. Timothy stared at the message for a long moment before typing. Yes. Chapter 6. The Setup. Christina Andrews studied the financial reports spread across her desk. The numbers told a story of calculated decline. Their gallery chain's value deliberately undervalued while a secret portfolio of authenticated works grew steadily more valuable. Lucas called again. Kathleen announced, entering the office. He's getting desperate. Good. Christina smiled coldly. Isaac's intelligence was correct. The authentication scheme is unraveling. Speaking of Isaac, Kathleen placed a newspaper clipping on her sister's desk. Look what I found in the Chicago Tribune archives. The article detailed the authentication scandal that had ruined their father. In the background of a photo, barely visible, stood a younger Lucas Wolfe, 2 years before his supposed arrival in Boston. Send it to Claire, Christina instructed. She's been quite helpful with the investigation. Anonymous tips? Kathleen raised an eyebrow. Like father, like daughter, Christina mused. Though she doesn't know that yet. Their secretary buzzed. Mr. McGuire is here. Isaac entered, impeccable in his tailored suit. "Ladies, I trust you've reviewed my proposal? The numbers are interesting," Christina acknowledged. "But Lucas's offer is funded by stolen money," Isaac interrupted smoothly, "from a trust fund intended for his children. Would you like to see the documentation?" He placed a file on her desk. Inside lay detailed records of trust fund transfers, all leading to Lucas's recent authentication ventures. "Miranda authorized this?" Kathleen demanded. "Without consulting Henry," Isaac confirmed, "which has created quite a rift in their little conspiracy." At the museum, Miranda stared at her bank statement in horror. The trust fund transfers had been flagged for investigation. "How?" she demanded into her phone. "The paperwork was perfect." "Someone's blocking us," Timothy replied wearily. "And before you ask, no, I can't fix it. I'm done, Miranda. You and Lucas are on your own." "Timothy," she started, but he had already hung up. Her office door opened and Jillian Cobb entered. "Miranda, we need to discuss some irregularities in the authentication records." "Now isn't a good time," Miranda began. Actually, Jillian's voice was steel. "It's long overdue." Detective Moran sat in his car outside Henry's care facility, reviewing the latest evidence. The pieces were falling into place: Marion's death, the cover-up, years of financial fraud and forged documents. His phone rang. The Chicago Police Art Crimes Division. "Detective Moran? We need to discuss Lucas Wolf's activities during his supposed tenure here." Before he could respond, another call came in from Claire Ward. "Detective? I have information about my father's authentication practices and about my grandmother's death." The storm was breaking, all the carefully laid pieces falling into position. Somewhere in Manhattan, Derek Ward, now Isaac McGuire, watched his revenge unfold through the reports from his network of allies. Roxanne entered his office. "Sir? Everything's in place for the shareholders' meeting." "Good." Derek studied the photo on his desk. His mother's last Christmas, her smile hiding the knowledge that would soon lead to her death. "Alert our friends in law enforcement. It's time to end this charade." The final pieces were moving into position. The trap was set, baited with the very greed and desperation that had driven his enemies for so many years. Soon, they would all learn the true cost of betrayal. Chapter 7. The Revelation. The Andrews Gordon Gallery boardroom buzzed with anticipation. Art fraud investigators from Interpol, FBI, and Scotland Yard sat interspersed among the shareholders, their presence concealed behind careful disguises. Christina Andrews tapped her pen against her notepad, watching Lucas Wolf approach the podium. His confident stride betrayed no awareness of the trap about to spring shut. "Ladies and gentlemen," Lucas began, "our bid to acquire the Andrews Gordon Gallery chain represents a unique opportunity." Perhaps a voice cut through the room. "We should discuss your previous acquisition opportunities, Mr. Wolf. The Chicago scandal, for instance." Isaac McGuire rose from his seat, removing his glasses. The room fell silent as his true features emerged. Derek Ward stood before them, his face carved from granite. "Or shall we discuss the Rembrandt authentication that destroyed Robert Gordon?" He turned to face Lucas directly. "Though personally, I'm more interested in talking about my mother's death." Lucas's facade cracked. "Derek, that's not possible," Miranda gasped from her seat. "You disappeared. Did you really think I'd just walk away?" Derek's voice could have frozen flame. "While you and my father stole my children's inheritance to fund your latest fraud." Henry Ward, seated in the front row, clutched his chest. "Son, don't call me that." Derek's words cut like razors. "You lost that right when you helped murder my mother." Candace Marks stood, badge gleaming. "Lucas Wolf, you're under investigation for multiple counts of art fraud, financial crimes, and conspiracy related to Marion Ward's death." Timothy Bautista emerged from the side door, carrying a thick portfolio. "I have the documentation here. Falsified records, backdated contracts, evidence of Henry's involvement in covering up Marion's death." "You bastard," Miranda hissed at her brother. "No, Miranda." Timothy's voice shook. "We're the bastards. All of us. We watched Derek raise Lucas's children while helping you steal his fortune." Henry's face had turned gray. His new wife, Patrice, reached for her phone. likely to delete her recordings of his drunken confessions. Don't bother, Derek told her coldly. We already have copies. Detective Moran stepped forward, warrant in hand. Henry Ward, you're under arrest for conspiracy and accessory after the fact in the death of Marion Ward. Henry clutched his chest harder, slumping in his chair. As chaos erupted, Derek's voice cut through the noise. Did you think I wouldn't find out? He advanced on Lucas and Miranda. That I wouldn't piece it together? The carefully timed pregnancies, the trust fund transfers, the artwork authentications that paid for my children's education? They're my children, Lucas snarled. No. Derek's smile was terrifying in its calmness. They're victims of your fraud, just like I was. But unlike me, they've chosen to fight back. Isn't that right, Claire? Their oldest daughter stood from her place among the shareholders. The anonymous tips about Dad's authentication fraud? Those came from me. I've been documenting everything. Miranda's face crumpled. Claire, how could you? How could I? Claire's laugh was bitter. How could you? You made me question everything I thought I knew about family, about truth. So I learned to authenticate truth for myself. Paramedics rushed in to attend to Henry, who had collapsed fully now. Patrice hovered nearby, her schemes of blackmail evaporating as Derek's team moved to secure the evidence. Mr. Ward, Christina Andrews called out. Perhaps you'd like to share the real numbers behind Mr. Wolf's attempted gallery acquisition? Derek nodded to Roxanne, who projected financial records onto the screen. Money stolen from my mother's estate, funneled through fraudulent art sales, used to finance a hostile takeover. Did I miss anything, Lucas? You can't prove, Lucas began. Actually, Candace interrupted. We can prove all of it. Your authentication fraud in Chicago. The real reason Joe and York was transferred. The truth about Marion Ward's death. Henry's role in the cover-up. Detective Moran stepped forward. Miranda Clements Ward, Lucas Wolf, you're both under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and financial crimes. As they were led away in handcuffs, Miranda turned back. Derek, please. The children will learn what their parents really are. He cut her off. Frauds, thieves, and conspirators in my mother's death. That's your legacy, Miranda. Not the perfect family you pretended to build. Timothy approached cautiously. The immunity deal is valid, Derek confirmed. In exchange for your complete testimony about Henry's involvement in my mother's death, the paramedics wheeled Henry out on a stretcher, Patrice trailing behind. The old man's eyes locked with his son's one final time, pleading silently for forgiveness. Derek turned away. Claire, he addressed his oldest. You've done good work. I learned from the best, she replied quietly. Even if I didn't know it was you behind the investigation. The room gradually emptied, leaving Derek with his team. Christina and Kathleen approached with contracts in hand. The gallery chain is yours, Christina stated. As agreed. No, Derek corrected. It's ours. Together, we'll build something honest. Something that would make your father proud. Outside, reporters gathered as news of the arrests spread. Derek Ward had returned from the dead, and with him came the destruction of Boston's greatest art fraud conspiracy. Chapter 8. The Fallout. The museum's boardroom crackled with tension as Jillian Cobb presented her findings. The audit reveals systematic fraud in our authentication department. Works valued at over $100 million have questionable provenance. Board member Richard Phillips mopped his brow. This will destroy us. No, Derek spoke from the doorway. It will cleanse you. Heads turned as he entered, Roxanne and Claire flanking him. The 3 months since the shareholders' meeting had transformed the museum's landscape. Mr. Ward, Jillian acknowledged. Your timing is perfect. I was just explaining how deep the corruption went. Show them, Derek commanded. Roxanne distributed documents detailing each fraudulent authentication, each inflated sale, each corrupted transaction that had flowed through the museum's reputation. The museum's standing can be salvaged, Claire added, but only through complete transparency. And who are you to make such claims? Phillips demanded. My daughter, Derek stated flatly, who had the courage to expose her own father's crimes. The room fell silent. Claire stepped forward, presenting her own documentation. I've developed new authentication protocols, incorporating multiple independent verifications. The Andrews Gordon Gallery has already implemented them successfully. The press will crucify us, another board member protested. The press already knows, Jillian countered. Thanks to Miranda's published confession. In her prison cell, Miranda had indeed begun writing a detailed account of the conspiracy that had claimed Marion Ward's life and nearly destroyed her family's legacy. I did it for love, she had written. At least, that's what I told myself. But Lucas never loved me. He loved what I could give him. Access. Legitimacy. A family man's reputation to hide behind while he built his fraud empire. The confession had blown open the art world's darkest corners. Galleries and collectors across 3 continents faced scrutiny as the web of fraud unraveled. In her office at the newly reformed Andrews Gordon Gallery, Roxanne reviewed the latest forensic accounting reports. Her warnings about financial discrepancies, once ignored, had laid the groundwork for exposing the entire scheme. The immunity deals are processing, Candace reported, entering with fresh files. Timothy's testimony about Henry's role in Marion's death is devastating. Good. Roxanne signed another document. How's Claire handling everything? Better than expected. She's turned her pain into purpose. The new authentication standards she's developing with Christina and Kathleen are revolutionary. The door opened as Derek entered, reviewing reports on his tablet. The twins called. They're staying in Europe for now. They need time, Roxanne observed. They need truth, he corrected. Something in short supply during their upbringing. At the prison, Detective Moran conducted another interview with Lucas. The former authenticator's arrogance had crumbled as evidence mounted. Henry approached me first, Lucas admitted. Said his son was too soft, too honest for the art world. That Miranda deserved someone who understood ambition. And Marion Ward? Moran pressed. Lucas looked away. She found Miranda's letters. Threatened to expose everything. Henry said he'd handle it. By pushing her down the stairs, Moran finished. Then rushing the cremation to hide evidence. I never want it. Save it for the judge. Moran cut him off. Your children already know the truth. Back at the gallery, Claire worked late into the night, analyzing authentication techniques. The door opened quietly. You should rest, Derek said. Says the man who spent 11 years planning his revenge. She replied without looking up. Justice, he corrected. Your grandmother deserved that much. Claire finally faced him. Why didn't you tell me? When you first discovered, would you have believed me? Over the parents who raised you? I believed in evidence, she stated. Just like you taught me, even if I didn't know it was you teaching. Chapter 9. The Resolution. 1 year after the shareholders' meeting, the Andrews Gordon Gallery hosted its first major exhibition under new management. The guest list read like a who's who of the art world, drawn by the gallery's revolutionary authentication standards. Your father would be proud, Derek told Christina and Kathleen as they prepared for opening. He'd be prouder of this, Christina replied, revealing the inaugural scholarship recipient, Renee Lamb's daughter, Sarah, studying art authentication and fraud prevention. The Marion Ward Foundation's first public ceremony celebrated more than just scholarships. It marked the implementation of new industry standards, developed by Claire in partnership with the gallery. My grandmother died protecting the truth, Claire addressed the audience. Our new protocols ensure no other family suffers that fate. Henry watched the ceremony's broadcast from his care facility, his health broken by the strain of exposure. His private journal, now part of the public record, revealed a man torn between loyalty to his conspirators and love for his son. I thought I was protecting him, he had written, keeping him from Marion's righteousness, her unbending honesty. Instead, I created the instrument of my own destruction. Derek became everything I feared, a force for truth in a world I helped corrupt. Patrice had fled after her recorded confessions became public, but copies remained safely secured in Derek's files. Timothy's immunity deal had come at a personal cost. His testimony against his sister and Henry had guaranteed prison sentences for both, but the weight of betrayal haunted him. I'm establishing a foundation, he told Derek during a rare meeting, to support ethical practices in art authentication. Trying to wash away your guilt? Derek's voice held no sympathy. Trying to build something honest, Timothy corrected. Like you did. The museum's reformation proved even more comprehensive than Gillian had hoped. Under Claire's guidance, they established new verification procedures that became industry standards. Your mother would be proud, Roxanne told Derek as they watched Claire lead a training session. She died for the truth, he replied. Claire lives for it. The twins, Thomas and Elizabeth, maintained distance but not silence. Their emails to Claire revealed growing understanding of their family's complex legacy. We're studying art history, Elizabeth wrote, learning to separate truth from lies, just like you taught us. Miranda's prison diary became an unexpected catalyst for change. Her raw confession of the affair, the children, Marian's death. All of it forced the art world to confront its darkest aspects. Lucas, facing charges in multiple countries, tried to shift blame onto Miranda. The attempt backfired as she finally broke her silence, revealing the full scope of their schemes. I won't protect him anymore, she told the prosecutors. My children deserve to know the whole truth. The Andrews Gordon Gallery's new authentication process, requiring multiple independent verifications, spread rapidly through the industry. Other galleries and museums adopted similar standards, creating a more transparent art world. Derek's revenge had transformed into something larger, a reformation of the system that had enabled his family's destruction. The scholarship fund in Marian's name supported students dedicated to preventing similar frauds. Claire's work combining his analytical approach with her art expertise prevented countless others from suffering similar deceptions. She never called him father, but their shared commitment to truth forged its own bond. Grandmother died protecting the truth, she told him once. We live by revealing it. The children chose their own paths forward. Some maintained cautious contact with Miranda and Lucas, others chose complete separation. But all carried forward the lesson of resilience, of rebuilding from betrayal's ashes. Henry's final years passed in isolated care, visited only by Claire. His journal revealed his internal struggle between conspiracy and love, a conflict that ultimately destroyed him. I thought I was protecting our world, his final entry read. Instead, I destroyed everything Marian valued: truth, honor, family. Derek restored those values, but at a cost I never imagined. The Andrews Gordon Gallery flourished under its new leadership trio. Their transparent authentication process became the industry gold standard, their scholarship program a beacon for aspiring authenticators. We built something honest, Christina told Derek at their year-end review. Something that honors both our fathers' legacies. The truth about Marian's death had brought closure, but also fresh pain. Detective Moran's investigation led to Henry's indictment as an accessory, though his health prevented trial. Patrice's recorded confessions provided key evidence, though she had tried desperately to destroy them. Her attempt to profit from Henry's guilt became another brick in the wall of evidence. In the end, Derek's revenge accomplished more than personal justice. It sparked an industry-wide reformation, created new standards for authentication, and established safeguards against future fraud. The price had been high, family bonds broken, trusts shattered, lives destroyed. But from those ashes rose something stronger, a legacy of truth that would endure long after the pain of betrayal faded. We are not defined by biology, he told Claire during their last gallery opening. We're defined by our choices, our commitment to truth. She nodded, understanding the weight of that legacy. That's what grandmother died protecting, what you spent 11 years avenging, what we'll spend our lives preserving. The Marian Ward Foundation's motto, carved in stone above its entrance, said it all. Truth endures. It was Marian's final gift to them all, a legacy of honesty that would outlive the lies that claimed her life. Epilogue. 20 years later, Claire Ward stood at the podium of the Marian Ward Foundation's 20th anniversary gala, her presence commanding attention from the assembled art world elite. At 45, she carried herself with the same analytical precision that had revolutionized art authentication 2 decades ago. 20 years ago, my grandmother's death exposed corruption that threatened to destroy the art world's integrity, she addressed the crowd. Today, we celebrate not just her memory, but the systems her sacrifice inspired. In the audience, Derek Ward, now in his 60s, watched his oldest daughter with quiet pride. His hair had turned completely silver, but his brown eyes remained sharp as ever. The Andrews Gordon Gallery empire he'd built with Christina and Kathleen had expanded to 15 locations across 3 continents, each one a beacon of authentication integrity. After the speech, Claire joined him at his table. "The new scanning technology is ready for implementation," she reported. "We can detect forgeries at the molecular level now." "Your grandmother would be impressed," Derek replied. "She fought for truth with handwritten letters and personal diaries. We fight with quantum spectroscopy." Speaking of fighting, Claire hesitated. "Miranda's parole hearing is next month." Derek's face hardened. 20 years hadn't softened his stance toward his ex-wife. Miranda had served 18 years for her role in the conspiracy, her prison diary becoming a cautionary tale taught in art ethics courses worldwide. "Will you attend?" he asked. "Thomas and Elizabeth want me to," Claire answered, referring to her younger siblings. They've been visiting her regularly since they turned 30. The twins had forged their own paths in Europe. Thomas had become a prominent art restorer in Paris, his work focused on preserving historical accuracy rather than market value. Elizabeth taught art history at Oxford, her courses particularly focused on authentication scandals and their impact on cultural heritage. And the others? Michael's still in Boston, running the Foundation's educational programs. Sarah's in New York with her gallery. Claire paused. They haven't spoken to Miranda since the trial. The middle children had chosen complete separation from their biological parents. Michael Ward had thrown himself into protecting other families from art fraud, while Sarah had opened her own gallery specializing in emerging artists with rigorous authentication standards. Their conversation was interrupted by Christina Andrews, elegant at 70. "The Tokyo gallery numbers are in. Authentication requests have doubled since implementing Claire's new protocols." Kathleen Gordon, never far from her sister, joined them. "Robert would have loved this," she said, referring to their father. "His tragedy sparked a revolution in authentication standards." The sisters had transformed their family's near ruin into triumph. The Andrews Gordon authentication protocols, developed with Claire, had become the global standard. Their father's reputation had been posthumously restored, his death now seen as the catalyst for industry-wide reform. "Roxanne sent the latest audit," Christina added, referring to their longtime financial advisor. Roxanne Lang had parlayed her role in exposing the original conspiracy into a stellar career. Her forensic accounting firm specialized in art market fraud, working closely with law enforcement agencies worldwide. She'd never married, dedicating herself instead to protecting other families from experiencing Derek's fate. "And Candace's report?" Derek inquired. Candace Marks, the former FBI agent who'd helped create his Isaac McGuire persona, now ran the Foundation's investigative division. Her team tracked authentication fraud attempts globally, their data feeding into Claire's ever-evolving verification protocols. 3 attempts to duplicate your father's methods last quarter, Christina reported, all caught by the new systems. Henry Ward had died in his care facility 15 years ago, his journal becoming a key text in art crime studies. His second wife, Patrice, had fled to South America after her recorded confessions became public, but her attempt to steal millions from Henry's estate had failed thanks to Derek's meticulous planning. Detective Moran called. Claire mentioned. "He's retiring next month. Wants to add his case files to the Foundation's archives." James Moran had made amends for his early silence by becoming one of their strongest allies. His investigation of Marion's death had led to reforms in how art-related crimes were investigated. His wife, Cheryl, had established support groups for families affected by art fraud. "What about Timothy?" Christina asked carefully. Timothy Bautista's path to redemption had been complex. After receiving immunity for his testimony, he'd established an ethics consulting firm specializing in art market compliance. He never forgave himself for his role in Marion's death, but his work helped prevent countless other frauds. His firm's handling compliance for the new authentication center in Dubai, Claire replied. He still sends monthly reports about Miranda and Lucas. Lucas Wolfe had received 30 years for his crimes, his sentence extended by attempts to blame everything on Miranda. He spent his days in maximum security, his art authentication career a cautionary tale taught in museums worldwide. "The museum board meeting is tomorrow," Christina noted. Jillian's retirement announcement? Jillian Cobb had transformed the Museum of Fine Arts after the scandal broke. Her implementation of Claire's authentication standards had restored the institution's reputation. Her retirement would mark the end of an era, but her reforms ensured the museum's integrity would endure. They're naming the authentication department after grandmother, Claire revealed. The Marion Ward Center for Authentication Excellence. Derek nodded in approval. His mother's death had sparked a revolution, her integrity becoming the foundation for systemic change. The scholarship fund in her name had produced hundreds of graduates dedicated to preventing art fraud. Later that evening, in his private office at the gallery's headquarters, Derek reviewed the latest authentication reports. A knock interrupted his work. "Come in, Sarah." His second youngest entered, her features a painful reminder of Miranda's beauty, but her bearing all Ward determination. "We received another letter from Lucas," she reported. "Still claiming innocence." After 20 years, Derek mused. Some people never learn. The twins want to visit him too, Sarah added. They think understanding him might help them move forward. And what do you think? I think grandmother died protecting us from their lies, Sarah replied firmly. Our job is protecting others from similar deceptions. The Marion Ward Foundation had expanded far beyond its original scope. Besides authentication research and education, it now provided legal support for fraud victims, funded forensic accounting investigations, and maintained the world's largest database of authentication standards. Claire's new technology, Sarah continued, it's not just about catching forgeries anymore. It's about preserving truth for future generations. Truth was always the goal, Derek agreed. Your grandmother understood that. Everything we've built, the galleries, the foundation, the authentication standards, it all serves that purpose. Their conversation was interrupted by a video call from Thomas in Paris. Claire told me about Miranda's parole hearing, he said without preamble. Will you attend? Derek asked. Elizabeth and I. We need closure, Thomas admitted. Not forgiveness, just understanding. Your grandmother sought understanding too, Derek replied. It cost her life, but it bought us truth. Elizabeth's voice joined the call from Oxford. Your revenge gave us that gift, the chance to choose truth over comfortable lies. The twins had struggled most with their identity after the truth emerged. Their decision to study abroad had initially seemed like escape, but they transformed their pain into purpose. Thomas's restoration work and Elizabeth's teaching helped preserve artistic truth for future generations. Michael's expanding the educational program, Sarah reported. We're opening centers in Singapore and Dubai next year. Michael Ward had inherited Derek's financial acumen, but applied it to protecting artistic heritage. His programs taught authentication techniques to museum staff worldwide, building a global network of fraud prevention experts. A notification popped up on Derek's screen, the latest authentication statistics from Claire's department. The new quantum scanning technology had caught 3 major forgery attempts that morning alone. The system works, he noted with satisfaction. Because you made it work, Sarah replied. You could have just destroyed them, Miranda, Lucas, Henry. Instead, you built something lasting. I built it for you, Derek corrected. All of you. So you'd understand that truth matters more than comfortable lies. The Marion Ward Foundation's reach now extended globally. Its authentication protocols protected billions in art transactions annually. Its educational programs trained hundreds of specialists. Its legal team had helped prosecute art fraud cases on every continent. The next generation of students arrives next week, Sarah mentioned. Renee Lamb's granddaughter is among them. Renee Lamb had passed away 5 years ago, but her courage in questioning the children's birth records had earned her family a permanent place in the Foundation's history. Her daughter, Sarah, the Foundation's first scholarship recipient, now ran its forensic research division. Life has a way of coming full circle, Derek observed. The next morning, he stood in front of Marion's portrait at the Foundation's headquarters. 20 years of pursuing truth had transformed personal revenge into a legacy that would outlive them all. Claire joined him, carrying the latest authentication reports. The Singapore gallery caught another forgery attempt. They're using Henry's old methods. There will always be people who choose lies over truth, Derek replied. Our job is making sure they don't succeed. Like grandmother did, Claire agreed. She died protecting truth. We live preserving it. The Marion Ward Foundation's motto still hung above them, as relevant now as it had been 20 years ago. Truth endures. It was their family's legacy, not the comfortable lies that had defined their early years, but the harder truth they'd chosen to pursue. 20 years, Claire mused. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Time doesn't heal all wounds, Derek responded, but it lets us transform them into something meaningful. The Foundation's work continued, its mission expanding with each new generation. Marion Ward's death had exposed corruption, but her legacy had built systems to prevent its recurrence. Her grandchildren, though not related to Derek by blood, had inherited his determination and her integrity. Together, they transformed personal tragedy into institutional change, individual revenge into systemic reform. The art world would never be perfect, but thanks to Marion Ward's sacrifice and her family's response, it had tools to fight corruption and protect truth. As Derek reviewed the day's authentication reports, he reflected that revenge had given him something unexpected, not just justice for his mother, but a family bound by choice rather than biology, united in their commitment to truth. It was a legacy Marion would have appreciated, one that would endure long after personal grievances faded into history. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.